Who's ready to get going tonight? Yeah, that's right. Beautiful night. We have got a great night. We're going to have a good run. A couple of things as we get going. If you didn't get a chance, again, the training plans are up here. I've got a few more Fleet Feet coupons. If you didn't do your Y, the bands, all that. So you can come get that at any time. But tonight, here's what we're going to do. For your third week, March 6th, we are going to stretch it out. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to go do it before I run. And then you're going to Kahoot it out. Yeah. And then we're going to look at how David calls out and what we can learn from David in Psalm 18. Milestone night. Milestone night. 2 accounts. 2 reasons. Tonight is your last night to run in the dark. Yeah. That always makes us feel better. Next week we'll have some daylight. And then secondly, if this was a 4-quarter sport event, we are wrapping up the first quarter this week. And we will be moving to the second quarter. So nice job. You guys are committed. You're in. Stretching 101. Very first thing I can tell you is that you know you. Meaning you know your aches, your pains, your history, your doctor's advice. So I want you to listen to your doctor. I want you to listen to your body. I want you to know what you've had issues in the past. That's the first most important thing if you need to pull back or you need to do something. Secondly, there are 2 types of stretches. There are static stretches and dynamic stretches. The first one is the one we want to do after we run. Do not do static stretching before you run. Static stretching is like a lot of us did back in grade school in PE. Let's stick our feet out in front of us and just hold our toes. What's happening is we come in with cold muscles, we start grabbing and stretching and holding, and then we just pull something. So we want to do this after. It is important because after your run, after your workout, you're going to build some flexibility by doing static stretching. You're going to do slow reaches for those toes. We're going to hold for about 10 seconds each, and you're going to do several of those. The one I want us to work on tonight, this is the most important stretch for runners. When we say that dynamic stretching, we're just talking about 5 or 10 minutes to sort of get going. Using the motions and the muscles that represent what we're about to do. Okay? That's what we want to do. So we want to do stretching that involves movement. Most important. We want to do this before we work out. This is going to prevent injury. If static stretching increases flexibility, which we all need, this is going to prevent injury. We want to increase blood flow. So we're going to target those muscles that require the additional strain and endurance and warmth to begin with. We don't want to hold any of these. These are going to be movement stretches. We want to extend slowly to begin with and then increase the range. And then lastly, there have been times where I've run many miles and my stretching and warm-up is basically just 10 or 15 minutes of purposed walking. Increasing the blood flow, moving those muscles. All right, top 3 stretches, and then when we're going to go out here, we're going to try them out, we're going to test them out. If you're going to want to partner up with someone or maybe get beside the building or a post or whatever, and we'll do a few minutes of this. Number 1 stretch for me is always in terms of the Achilles tendon and the calves is just to get off of a curb. You can even do it on the ground, but off of the curb is great, and just calf lift. I'm just going to go up and down 20 times at least. That feels so good right now. Can you guys feel that? Yeah. That's great. Right there. Just like that. I'll do that all night. All right. Leg swing is another one that I have found to be very helpful. Hamstrings, IT band, all of those sort of things. And that's just as easy as against the wall or on a table and just swinging. I'm going to start slow, but I'm going to keep increasing the range. And I'm just going to do about 10 or 15 of those. Now, once I get a little bit more coordinated, I might try to go behind my leg a little bit too. And just swing in front, swing in back. And that's the sort of just motion we want to start creating. That's going to get us good and warm. And then the last one is a leg lift turn. And for that, all I'm talking about is just lifting my knee and turning it out. Turning it back in and down. Just like this. And again, I can feel that right now. Just, wow, that really helps. Okay? So those 3 are the 3 if you've never, attempted this, if you're saying, what are the stretches that would help me, better prepare, not be injured? Calf lift, leg swing, leg lift turn. Okay? So when we break here in a second, we're going to go out there. We'll spend about 4 or 5 minutes, try several of those out. You're going to do 90 seconds of running, 2 minutes of walking, 6 intervals. And we were sitting there, we're saying, gosh, I felt like I was doing that one pretty good on Saturday morning. I think I'm ready to advance a little bit more. And I'm going to say, trust the plan. Take it as a gift. Take it as a gift. There will not be a lot of easy weeks ahead of us. If you're already at a point where you're saying, this feels easy, enjoy it, okay? Take it in, move forward with it, and complete it. All right? Well, let me pray for us, get us going. We'll go out here, do some stretching, and just have a wonderful night tonight, guys. Looking forward to getting back together. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
All right. Speaking of next week, I've got one more confirmation of an item coming in, hopefully tomorrow or Thursday. And then we're going to do one of the most exciting. We always have a good time at our tables. The kids love it. I think that's going to be one of our best activities next week, so you don't miss that. Okay. Good job, guys. That was fun. Good work. I hope that helped also get to know one another at your table. It's nothing like trying to press everybody over trivia questions to get to know everybody. All right, let's talk for a few minutes about Psalm 18 tonight, and then we will get going. All right? So Psalm 18, I just want to go back and talk about this. We've had 3 weeks. This will be our third week on it. If you recall, week number 1, we talked about the introduction, the superscription, what was written about that psalm and why it was written, and it was to be sent to the choir master to be made into beautiful music, to be made into something that could be sung in worship. It was a song about thanksgiving, deliverance, victory, and we don't know yet why or what David's celebrating or giving thanks for. That's going to come, right? Okay, last week we looked at the first 3 verses, and we said this was the prelude. Before David said, this is why I'm writing it, I just want to acknowledge who you are. In fact, do you guys remember what David said that was sort of our memory verse to that? I love you, O Lord, my strength. Right, my rock, my fortress, all of those things that he listed. So that was the prelude. Now, when we get into verse 4 tonight, in the next 3 verses, we start to see David start to explain what brought this psalm on. Has anybody ever written a song in here? A poem? A story? Maybe? Okay. What I hear from people who do write songs and stories and poems and everything is that the key is really not to try to force what it's about, but to be inspired by the reality and experiences that you have, and then just learn to express those true feelings, those true experiences. And that's what we start to see with David, and it gets no more real than how David starts this psalm out. The cords of death encompassed me. The torrents of destruction assailed me. The cords of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. Boy, he sounds like he was in some big trouble, doesn't he? In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. I'd like to just suggest a couple things for us tonight to reflect on. The first is in those first two verses. When he says the cords of death or the cords of Sheol, Sheol was basically it wasn't like Hades, but it was like the grave. He's almost saying, I had a foot in the grave. I was so close to that being all, and that's how distressed and troubled I was. And so when you think about those two verses there, we want to acknowledge that this is a psalm out of a desperate situation. There is the literal near death that David experienced. His best friend's father, the king, chased him all over the country trying to get rid of him. His son, Absalom, tried to usurp him and started chasing him. He will go on in other psalms and say that there was slander against his name. That in I guess what the kids, I'm always careful when I try to be hip here, but what the kids might say today, haters tried to hate on David. But they just abused, just put him down, right? And then there's the metaphorical great trouble. In other psalms, David says that it was his sins that really oppressed him. The things that he brought onto himself. And so it was out of those sort of circumstances that David had a heart to express what God would eventually do for him. And so we're only going to reflect, this isn't a discussion yet, but in your own mind, 30 seconds, I'd say there's 3 reflections that we would look at when we think about the way he opens this up. Number 1 is, have you experienced that before? Can you think back on a time that was that desperate? Literally, metaphorically. The second point of reflection that I would suggest is in our current state, today, when you got out of bed, tonight, when you lay down into bed, is there something that is troubling you in a way that is distressing, that you feel the burden of that on you? It could be a physical thing. It could be an emotional thing, right? It could be a situation at work. It could be a situation in the family. But knowing that distress, that it just feels like it's that burden on you. This is the feeling David's having, or he has had, right? And then the last thing is, well, do you know someone that is suffering that way? Because this is a way this can apply as well. Do you know someone who's crying out? That was the most distressful cat I have ever heard. Yes, that you nailed it, Raleigh. That's exactly the feeling. If I were a cat in distress, I would sound just like that. That's awesome. And so that's how we sort of position. How do we apply the Psalms to ourselves? We think about that. But then secondly, despite all of that, where he's been, he says in that distress, what did he do? I called on the Lord. I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. I'd like us to take 2 minutes to think about what he's saying here and see if we can point something out. And what I'd like you to discuss is when you read that verse itself, 18:6, what is your initial thought when you see this? Or I'll put it back up. Just go around your table and say, hey, you know, when I understand the circumstances and I read what verse 6 tells me, this is the first thing that comes to my mind. Okay? Right, wrong, indifferent. What comes to your mind when you read that David in his distress cried, temple he heard my voice, my cry to him reached his ear? Think about it. Talk about it at your table just for 2 minutes. I see that in the distress, David turned to God. And as far off as he got, and he got off really far at certain times, as troubled as he was, David was a man after God's own heart because he always turned back to God's heart. And what a lesson. Those times that we're tempted to sort of say, all right, I'm so far away, there's no sense in me turning back. David's example is, no, turn back to help. In that distress, turn back to help. And then the second part I see, God heard with his ears. That is a personal presence of the Creator, sovereign God of the universe who knows the distress and trouble we have, and he hears those troubles. To David personally. You know, one of the things, David's written a lot of psalms that are a collective psalm. He writes them on behalf of the people. He writes them on the our and the we and the we sing praises and all these things. This is one of the few and most personal psalms that David writes. And he writes it in a way that he said, I was so far, I only turned to you, and then you actually heard me. You took the time to hear me. And that just really speaks to me. And I hope it does you too. Whatever your situation or distress today or tomorrow, turning to God and knowing that from on high, which David is recognizing too, right? God is high, God Almighty, on high. He hears that, and that cry reaches to his ears. They don't go without fail. They don't go unheard. Next week, David's now going to use these really poetic, powerful language to say, and this is how God responded when I called to him. This is how the God of the universe heard my pleas, and this is going to be sort of that emphasis of victory and deliverance. So we're going to be looking at that next week. Just kind of keep moving through the song. Make sense? That's good? So keep reflecting on that this week. And I would pray, I know we've all got things we sort of bring in here like we do any day. Even if it was just today, it didn't go right for us. But some of us have seasons that haven't gone right for us. And I just want you to know that God does hear that. And be encouraged in that. Okay? All right. The final point one tonight. First, I've got 5 door prizes here. And I'm actually, this is, we had the talk last week. So I've got all kinds of socks I'm going to be giving out here. And more. But I got 5 tonight to come up, and we'll get these out, and we'll have some more next week. So afterwards, if you're one of these 5, just come up here and see me. Pam Carlson, Mariana Bowen, Sarah Carter, Zach Kamin, and Christine Voss. They're all here. Good, yeah. Come get some new socks here in a moment. All right, the final point 1. When do I need to pay? If you're looking for a date, it would be really helpful if by April 1st. Because we'll order shirts, and then I can get out the race codes the first week of April, and you guys can start entering the race itself. So if possible, please do not hesitate to call me, okay? Or let me know. Talk to me if there's any issue with that. Okay, is it me? Or is the Monday afternoon workout, oh man, just really hard? It is. It's the most difficult time of the week to do a workout. And this is what's going to be very helpful when we get to May 13th, as some of you saw this past Saturday morning. It is so much easier to do your run early in the morning than it is to come off that first work day of the week and come out here, and particularly as it starts warming up. So be encouraged. This should be the most difficult moment of your week. You're welcome. So it's all good. All right, Monday's tough. And then finally, is race registration live? Yes, please start sending your friends there, family members, everybody you know, to start registering for the Rock 5K. Fleet's going to help us do some promotion. Hopefully next week I'll have posters, yard signs, magnets, and we can get those out if you think you can help us get the word out. And we really want to help bless Winston-Salem Rescue Mission this spring. And so just start getting the word out, letting them know the Rock 5K, May 13th, 12th annual. Okay? If you have any questions, come see me. It was a great night, good workout. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Monday. Take care, guys. Good work.